The question I've got most often since me and Ali released our Skillshare class on Stoicism is, what is the one Stoic book I should read? The answer's not that simple, so I've made this video instead. So let's get started with tier 1. At this point, this is for someone who knows nothing about Stoicism. They might have come across Ali's post, might have seen that we have a Skillshare class. They want to know, what is Stoicism? And so rather than straight jumping into kind of heavy academic texts, I've given you 3 options depending on what kind of format you like to use. My first recommendation would be to unsurprisingly, head over and follow this really good account on Instagram and Facebook called The Stoic Teacher. Now this guy, he's just phenomenal, and he posts a daily quote with captions and so on and so forth. So do come over, and every morning I'll be posting a quote with a caption explaining some of the basic tenets of Stoicism and linking it to modern times. If you're someone, in all seriousness, who wants a physical book, a tier 1 book would be The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Now what this is 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance and the art of living. As you go through the book, what you've got is, for each day of the year, you actually have a Stoic quote which is then explained by the authors. Why would I recommend this? This keeps the friction low. So if you're someone who likes to listen to audiobooks or likes to listen to podcasts, I would highly recommend Matt Van Natter's Good Fortune podcast. This is what actually led to me discovering many of the books that I'm going to go on to recommend in tier 2. I would recommend 2 key books. These are Donald Robertson's Stoicism and the Art of Happiness, and William Irvine's A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy. So the key pros of William Irvine's book is the way in which it structures Stoic psychological techniques followed by advice for daily life. This is actually a structure that myself and Ali used for our Skillshare class because it's such a helpful structure. The idea is, what do the Stoics say about these particular topics? How can we then apply these to our daily life? Particularly useful in there are the discussions around negative visualization and what Irvine calls voluntary discomfort. Voluntary discomfort is the single idea that was most transformative in my weight loss journey, which you'll also be able to see on this channel on a Stoic weight loss journey. It's also quite a conversational book. It's quite entertaining, so if you're someone who enjoys more of the conversational style of kind of self-help book, I would recommend William Irvine's A Guide to the Good Life. On the other hand, if you're someone who prefers more of an academic text, I would recommend Donald Robertson's book. You know, you won't find entertaining anecdotes, but you will find a very detailed breakdown, kind of teach yourself format on applying Stoicism to daily life. I'm just going to give you 3 texts, 1 of each, and I would recommend starting with Epictetus's Enchiridion. In short, Epictetus was actually a slave from modern day Turkey who ended up becoming free and setting up a philosophical school in Greece. Actually, he never wrote himself, or if he did, we don't have those remaining works. What we do have is a collection of writings that his student Arrian created, and the one that I would recommend is first the Enchiridion. Now the Enchiridion literally means a manual, and some people used to call it a manual for living, like an instruction manual essentially. If you look through it, the reason it's so low friction is that each chapter is just a couple of paragraphs, and it basically just summarizes Stoicism for you. Epictetus was a big influence on Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, who wrote the Meditations. Now this is also a really interesting text which I'd recommend you moving on to afterwards. It was never actually written as a book for me and you to read. This is his personal journal. But what's amazing is to get an insight into one of the most wealthy, most powerful, influential men in the world, as the emperor, and he's reminding himself, listen, when these people bring you a fish to eat, remember it's just the carcass of a dead animal. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Remember that you're going to die. Remember all this stuff is temporary. Remember that after fame comes death. Remember that your name will be forgotten. And the third one is Seneca. Now, the one that I would recommend for tier 3 is Letters from a Stoic. This is essentially correspondence between him and his friend Lucilius, and again gives us a real insight into the kind of Stoic advice that he was giving. This is your book recommendation. Go and do those, and then if you want a tier 4 and a tier 5 video, comment below and let me know. The whole reason I've made this protocol is that too often these self-help books, they might have an effect for a week and then they wear off, and then essentially there's too much friction. Stoicism is something that is sticky, but the problem is that because it can be a bit wordy, if you don't build your way up to it, then you might end up not deriving the value that you could. And it is, as you know, I've seen in my life, a truly transformational philosophy, which essentially reminds us that the only things that we can control are our own choices and our own actions. The moment that you realize this paves the way for radical acceptance of the things that are happening around us. It stops resentment, it stops envy, and allows us to live in line with the 4 Stoic virtues of courage, justice, wisdom, and moderation. If you want to learn more about these, feel free to click below and see my video on how Chadwick Boseman embodies the 4 Stoic virtues. And also do click on to mine and Ali's Skillshare class, where we talk about the key Stoic techniques and how we apply it to our daily lives. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back next week with more ancient wisdom from modern times. Bye now.